Hello, this is Professor Green, and I just wanted to give you a short recap before we start diving into Module 10 and the second half of the semester. After reading over all of your comments in the discussion for Module 9, and as I'm working myself through the midterms, I just really want to take some time to confirm a lot of the lessons that you all have been sharing and just give you a little bit more to think about as we move on to the next sequence of metaphors. So, of course, we've gone through the three metaphors of the machines, the organisms, and the brains, where the central focal point has always been about structure and operations, understanding how structures are effective, why certain processes and structures are put into place, why certain practices and policies and procedures make sense, the impact that it has on human behavior, the impact that it has on centralizing decisions or making effective decisions, etc. So I think you're well scholared and well schooled on organizational design and structure from the most traditional points of view. And even as we evolved out into organisms, where you had to think about the wider environment, and brains, as we start thinking about more flexible needs that have been created for organizations to structure themselves differently according to different environments and different demands and different types of goods, services, and etc. that come into play. Again, all three of these metaphors focused on structure at the center point. And a lot of these ideas or lenses were probably new to you, particularly, and some might have even seemed a little bit out of the box, but so far everyone's been responding really well. It seems as though the lessons that have been jammed into the first 9 modules were taken well and learned well. And I just wanted to emphasize that we're now going to really start to think a little bit differently. So we had the same hammer used to tackle every problem. If you remember that's how I started off the slides. And the problem was the design issue, and how can you fix the design or make the designs adaptable and flexible, or are there better designs out there in terms of organizational structure? But when it comes to leading organizations and managing organizations, you have to think beyond just the design when you need to understand, well, what's going on here? What are the problems associated with my organization? And what am I not missing? What am I not paying attention to? What may I be missing in the story? And so it's important to get and think about some different lenses. So that was the point, or you got the point from the optical illusions, which illustrate exactly what many of you said in the discussion points, that my intent was to have you think outside of the box, for look at things at a different angle, for stepping back and seeing if you might see things with fresh eyes or fresh perspectives, because that's a little bit of what we're doing as we move forward. The design perspectives, again, kept us focused on certain things like structure and the environment, and the role of the manager as being the architect or the strategist and moving. But where we're going is we're going to be thinking more about culture and politics, and even a much more radical idea of domination. So in our cultural perspective, as we're starting with this module and the next one, modules 10 and 11, we'll really be thinking about artifacts and values and assumptions and belief systems, and what's intentionally communicated in organizations and sometimes what's unintentionally communicated in organizations, and how that can impact why work gets done in a certain way or why change can or cannot happen. All of these things are incredibly important. So it's good to think about the untangible that a cultural perspective highlights for us. And we challenge our basic assumptions of who we are or how we do things. We'll move into a political perspective, which has to do with understanding interests and coalitions and influence, and how it acts in organizational environments, and how it acts between organizations and within organizations and departments and structures, and how this again impacts what decisions are made and what kind of changes can happen or can't happen. Because oftentimes the best decisions are not those that have the most research or have the most facts out there, but sometimes the best decisions will be ignored for the most popular decision or the decisions being made by those that have the most influence. So we're really touching on culture and politics and even domination, where we're going into thinking about a world that's less black and white, or, pun intended, less structured. And with the domination perspective, we're thinking about anti theories or the unintended realities of organizations and how certain actions can have positives but also have negatives on those that they are trying to serve, from customers to the environment to actually the employees within. So that's a very different perspective, but also growing in popularity as we see many more millennials, or a millennial way of managing that thinks about the good of the organization, that thinks about the social purpose of every action that's being taken, from where you make your purchases to where you want to work. And a lot of that is embedded in these anti theories or ways of thinking about organizations. So that's going to be where we start to put our focus in the next set of metaphors, emphasizing different focal points and understanding why structures, operations, and functions don't always work as intended. And it's going to open up your perspectives more, even more from the three you've already learned about, to think about more than what's intended in theory, because these metaphors truly underscore what's critical for managers and leaders to understand about organizational change. As the leader, or as a manager and a leader in an organization myself, I cannot stress enough that things like culture and politics really do end up bringing a lot of understanding to what is or is not going on. So pay close attention to the cases and the concepts that are to come. So we're moving forward, and we're looking forward to the new changes in perspective as we forge ahead. Thank you.